Hi, and Merry Quiltmas. I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Allison. We can't believe Christmas is next week. We have some great last-minute ideas for you today.
We're here along with our sponsors, Bernina, Northcott, Reusable, and The Warm Company to share festive holiday decor, great gift ideas,
A Christmas quilt-along, handmade ornaments, and cute ways to personalize your gifts.
So grab a cup of hot chocolate, snuggle under your favorite quilt for this merry celebration.
So we know a lot of you are finishing up wrapping presents and getting ready to travel to your family's places. And we have this great pillowcase kind of travel bag for you to pack your goodies in.
We're going to show you how. Make your gifts extra special this holiday season with a reusable gift bag that also functions as a pillowcase. We're using the Winter Light collection from Banyan Boutiques. Place your band piece right side up. Next, we're going to fold it in half so right sides are together, and then align these short edges. Then we're going to measure 1.5 inches from the top, and then draw 1.5 inches line with a marking tool. Now we're going to sew 1/2 inch along that short edge, making sure to leave our marked 1.5 inch line open. Make sure to backstitch at the beginning and end of your open seam to secure the stitches. Once we're done sewing, we're going to turn the tube we've made with the right sides out. And we're also going to fold it in half so that all of our wrong edges are aligned like this. You should have 4 raw edges along this one side, right sides out, and we're going to press it flat. Next, we're going to make the pillowcase body. We've folded our pillowcase body piece in half with right sides together, and now we're going to pin along the side and bottom of our piece. When you're pinning, make sure to place your pin heads facing out. This will make your sewing step much easier. Now we're going to sew along our 2 pinned edges using a 1/2 inch seam. Make sure you pull the pins out before you sew over them. Now we're going to zigzag stitch inside our seam allowance to prevent any fraying. So we've turned our pillowcase body right side out, and now we're going to press those 2 seams we just sewed. Sometimes it's easiest if you roll the seam in between your fingers before pressing. It just helps get the seam as close to the outside of the body as possible. Next, we're going to place our pillowcase band onto our pillowcase body. A few things to remember for this step. The side seam of your pillowcase body and your side seam of the pillowcase band should be touching. The opening that you left should be on the inside of the band facing the body, and all right sides are out. Now we're going to align all of these raw edges. So something to remember is we're going to pin all the layers in place, but you only want to pin the top 3 layers and then the bottom 3 layers. So you'll have 2 from the band and 1 from the body, and then the bottom will have also 3 layers. If you pin them all together, you're going to sew your pillowcase closed. We're going to remove the table on our sewing machine to make it easier for this next step. You can simply push the button on the Bernina and slide it off. And with the opening open, just slide it on here, and then we're going to sew along that opening with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, removing pins as we go. Once you're done sewing, just like before, we're going to go back and zigzag stitch inside that seam allowance. We've flipped the band open, and now we're going to press our seam toward the body. It's easiest to do this if you loop the pillowcase around your ironing board and then press away from the band. Repeat this all the way around. Now we're going to top stitch to secure that seam in place. We're going to sew 1/4 inch away from that band. Next, we're going to top stitch along the band to make a casing for the ribbon. So we have measured 2.5 inches from the edge of our band to where our needle hits, and then we've attached our seam guide on the Bernina machine to align with the edge of the band, which will serve as our seam guide as we're sewing all the way around the pillowcase band. So we've taken our length of ribbon and I've attached a safety pin to the end of it. Next, we're going to insert it into the hole, and we're going to use the safety pin to just push it as far as we can, and then we'll pull the fabric taut, and then we'll push it farther, and then grab hold of it and pull the fabric, and you'll just do this the whole way around until the ribbon comes out the other end. Now that we have both ends of the ribbon out of the hole, we're going to find the opposite end on the band, and then we're just going to sew a stitching line through that ribbon just to hold it in place so it doesn't fall out. What we love about this project is that it's a really big gift bag, but after the holidays, it also functions as a pillowcase, so your recipient can enjoy it all year long. So you may have noticed in our last video, we also made one of these pillowcase gift bags out of this cute flannel. It's the Yeti for Winter collection from Northcott. We love using flannel during the winter because it's so soft and cozy and warm, especially as a pillowcase, but it can be a challenge to sew with. So we have a few tips for you today about working with flannel.
So, one of the main differences you might notice when working with flannel is that it can shrink quite a bit because most times they're made with about 100% cotton. So, a lot of people recommend, and we also recommend, you might want to pre-wash your fabric because it'll shrink quite a bit, and you don't want that to happen once you've already completed your quilt. So you can wash it in hot water, and it will fray a little bit. So, if you want to put it in a bag, like a lingerie bag, to kind of keep it all together, you can also throw a towel in to kind of keep it from getting all tangled up.
Yes, and because it shrinks, it's good to remember to buy more than you need or what the pattern states, just because you want to make sure you're not running out. Another tip is to press, don't iron your fabric. So if it has wrinkles, you just want to press the iron down on the wrinkles and lift it up. Don't iron across it because it will stretch and distort the fabric.
Yeah, and to go along with that, a little bit of starch will also help because it'll help give a little bit of stiffness and stability to your fabric. Plus that'll help, make the fabric go through your machine easier.
You also want to increase your seam allowance. So we suggest using a 1/2 inch seam when you're sewing with flannels. Flannels can fray really easily, so that 1/2 inch allows a little bit of fraying, so if it does fray, you won't be going into your seam allowance. That also does mean you have to take into account extra yardage for your pattern if it did not originally call for that flannel.
Yes, and some, you kind of just have to check your flannel. Some are thicker than others, so if they're especially thick, you might want to press your seams open, and that'll help, reduce bulk and make your pieces go together easily.
You also want to make sure you're using the right tools. So you might want to start with a fresh needle. Flannel is a little thicker, so you're going to dull your needle a little quicker when you're sewing, and a fresh rotary cutter blade never hurts. You also might want to use a walking foot when you're sewing. That will help all of the fabric pass through your machine evenly, so you're not stretching or distorting that fabric.
Yes, and when you're sewing, you can lengthen your stitch length a little bit, and this will prevent from tunneling or bunching up of your fabric.
And just like a normal all-purpose or polyester thread works great with flannel. And our last tip is that flannel can be messy. This is probably no surprise to anyone who's worked with flannel before. So you want to clean your machine out pretty frequently when you're sewing so that the dust doesn't accumulate in your machine and cause any problems.
So those are all of our great tips on flannel, so we hope you have a lot of success sewing with it.
Yeah. So next we're going to show you how to make a cute ornament.
love using the star block for this cute ornament. It's such a classic motif and great for the holidays. One thing we did differently with this ornament is we put it on point, so you can kind of experiment with all of the ornaments you've been making and kind of change up how they appear by the way you hang it.
Okay, so now we're going to show you how to make a really last minute but cute gift idea. It's a bookmark, a fabric bookmark, which would be just perfect for your book club buddies or anyone in your life who enjoys reading, and it's very fast to make. So what you will need is two 2.5 by 8.5 inch rectangles of fabric, and then a 1 3/4 by 7 3/4 piece of fusible fleece 2. This is from the Warm Company. It's a fleece that has fusible on both sides. So we're going to put right sides together, our two fabric pieces, and then we're going to sew on 3 sides, leaving one of these short ends open.
This is such a fun idea, you know, whether you have specific fabrics in mind or you might have some leftover scraps. These just make such a fast gift.
Okay, and I like on the corners, you can just stop with the needle down and then turn it. That way you don't have to start a new line of stitching, which is always handy. Okay, one more side. Okay, and then once that's done, you're going to turn this right side out through that opening in the top, and it ends up looking like this. And then we've taken our fusible fleece and we've already put it inside our bookmark. And this just helps provide a lot of stability to the bookmark, but it's still really flexible, so it fits between the pages really nicely, but it just makes it a little bulkier.
And you might find, you know, because you're trying to stuff it inside this tube, it might be a little tricky. You could, you know, use tweezers or something to help kind of finesse it in.
Yes.
So if you're struggling, it'll just take a little bit of finesse.
We used a pencil and just kind of, we shoved it in there and kind of just smoothed it out as we went.
Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and press and make sure that fusible is in there.
And this will just adhere that inside layer to both sides of the bookmark, so it's like a complete whole piece.
Yeah.
And then Allison's also going to turn over that open edge in 1/4 inch and just press that down.
Yep. So again, with the finesse, the little details, it might take a little second to get them in here, but you want to make sure all your raw edges are inside. I might do a side at a time and make it easier.
This is such a fun way to personalize gifts too. You could use different fabric for everybody you're making gifts for, so they can each get a different one, or you can have a cute matching set. You could also add, you could, you know, even do a little bit of embroidery or decorative stitching on it too before you sew those pieces together.
Yeah, it's such a fun gift. I would love to use this in my books, and you know, books are a popular gift in the holidays, so it'll go perfectly.
Okay, so now we're just going to top stitch 1/4 inch all the way around to finish the bookmark. So once you're done top stitching, your bookmark is completely done.
You can see we made a different version here in a different fabric, and it really would be fun to play with all sorts of different fabric lines and motifs.
So now we're going to show you block 4 and the finishing instructions for our holiday quilt along. Quilt-along quilt is so fun. We hope you enjoyed sewing along with us, and we would love to see photos, so make sure when you finish your quilt you share pictures with us. The stocking block would be so fun to make a bunch of and just string along baker's twine for a little garland above your fireplace. We think that would be really cute. So now we're going to share one more simple way for you to personalize your gifts.
So we have used this fusible Steam-A-Seam 2 and put it on this adorable fabric. And we have put it on gift tags and cards.
Yeah, so this is the Fa La La collection from Northcott, and it's the same as what we used in the Quilt-along quilt, so if it looks familiar, that's why. And we just thought this print was perfect for backing with the Warm Company Steam-A-Seam 2 with some fusible so we could decorate some gift tags and cards.
Yeah, so you can see we've made a couple up here, and you know, this fabric is great because the motifs are adorable and you could just focus on, you know, individual ones.
Yeah, so we cut out a few of the motifs for Allison to play with, and she's going to create her own card.
Yeah, so we've gone ahead and fused to the fabric and cut out the shapes, so then we can just peel off the paper backing. And then just put it, we just have some regular cardstock and just stick it on. And you can just press it on there. And this is great for kids too. You know, they can help out and like help you put your little guide together.
Yeah, they could do all of the little assembly. They could even color on it and add, you know, eyes or legs or hands and their own little message.
Yeah.
And we will just point out, when you're fusing it to the cardstock, you do not want to use steam for this because that will get the paper all out of shape and kind of wet it, and it will make the fusible not stick. So make sure your steam setting is off on your iron.
And you know, we mentioned this before, but it's nice because it is sticky. So you know, you can just kind of stick it on there, and then it holds its place until you iron it. So that's a really great feature too.
So a great little activity to do with the kids while you're getting ready for Christmas. Keep them occupied.
Yes. So we hope you use these craft ideas and have some fun with your kiddos.
Yeah. So thanks everyone for joining us this past month. We've really enjoyed spending the holidays with you.
Have a Merry Quiltmas and a great New Year.
Bye.